Have you ever looked closely at a honeycomb? At first glance, it just looks like a collection of tiny wax cells. But look closer. Every single cell is almost perfectly identical, perfectly shaped, perfectly connected. Not a single gap, no wasted space. It looks less like something built by insects and more like a masterpiece designed by an expert engineer. Now here's the question that puzzled scientists for over 2,000 years. How can a tiny bee with a brain smaller than a sesame seed create one of the most mathematically perfect structures on Earth? Did bees somehow discover geometry long before humans did? Or is there an even more incredible secret hiding inside every hive? Because the truth is far more surprising than most people realize. Before bees can build anything, they first have to create the building material itself. Unlike birds collecting sticks or humans making bricks, bees don't gather wax from flowers. They manufacture it inside their own bodies. Young worker bees become living wax factories. After eating huge amounts of nectar and honey, their bodies begin producing tiny transparent wax flakes from 8 special wax glands located underneath their abdomen. Each wax scale is no bigger than a grain of salt, but fresh beeswax has one problem. It's hard, brittle, almost impossible to shape. So the bee carefully removes the tiny wax flake with her legs, passes it to her mouth, chews it, mixes it with saliva, and warms it using her own body heat. Only then does the wax become soft enough to mold. Now imagine this process happening, not once, but millions of times. Thousands of worker bees silently working together, each contributing tiny pieces, until an entire honeycomb slowly comes to life. Now comes the biggest mystery. Why does every cell become a hexagon? Why not circles, or squares, or triangles? At first, circles sound perfect. They hold a lot of honey, but there's one major problem. Place circles next to each other, and empty gaps appear everywhere. Those gaps waste precious space. Bees would need even more wax to fill them. Squares and triangles remove the gaps, but create another problem. They require more wall length to store the same amount of honey. More walls, it means more wax. More wax means more energy. And for bees, energy is everything. Then comes the hexagon. No empty spaces. Maximum storage, minimum wax. Nature had accidentally discovered one of the most efficient shapes possible. In fact, humans spent more than 2,000 years trying to prove this mathematically. Finally, in 1999, mathematician Thomas Hales solved the famous honeycomb conjecture, proving that the hexagon stores the most space while using the least amount of material. Even Charles Darwin called the honeycomb absolutely perfect in economizing labor and wax. It seemed impossible that insects had solved a mathematical puzzle long before humanity. But then, scientists discovered something that changed everything. Here's where the story takes a completely unexpected turn. Bees don't actually build hexagons. Yes, you heard that correctly. In 2013, scientists carefully observed unfinished honeycombs. What they found shocked everyone. Instead of carefully constructing perfect 6-sided cells, the bees were actually building rough, round, circular tubes. So, where do the perfect hexagons come from? The answer isn't mathematics, it's physics. Inside a busy hive, thousands of bees constantly vibrate their flight muscles, not to fly, but to generate heat. The hive stays around 45 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, the beeswax softens, almost like thick liquid. Now something incredible begins to happen. As the softened circular cells press against one another, surface tension takes over. The same force that shapes soap bubbles starts reshaping the wax. The touching walls flatten naturally. Little by little, those rough circles transform into perfect 6-sided hexagons. The bees create the rough blueprint. Physics finishes the masterpiece, without rulers, without measurements, without knowing geometry. Nature simply lets the laws of physics do the hard work. The next time you see a honeycomb, remember, you're not just looking at wax, you're looking at one of nature's greatest collaborations. Biology provides the workers. Geometry provides the efficiency. Thermodynamics provides the heat. Physics provides the final shape. Together, they create one of the most beautiful structures ever built. Sometimes, nature doesn't need complicated intelligence. It simply follows simple rules and creates extraordinary results. If this video made you look at honeybees in a completely different way, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more hidden stories from science and history, and I'll see you in the next fascinating mystery.